Hello, this is Storm Warden coming back at you today with another video update. And today we're going to talk about the active tropics, and we're going to talk about Tropical Depression 14, which is located over here in the far western Gulf. Guys, this is not looking good. We've seen some really surprising trends overnight that support the potential for a strong storm to move towards Florida. And this just isn't good because Florida just got hit by Helene, and we could look at another big hurricane on the way for you guys. It's not looking good, guys. I definitely thought the Shear and Gyre would have won out this time, but it's looking like that's probably not likely to happen. Granted, it could probably still cap strength, but it's not likely to happen at this point in the game. And I can go ahead and tell you right now, the National Hurricane Center's track outlook already has us at a Cat 2 hurricane on its approach to Florida. So, guys, this isn't good news at all. Um, we're seeing some really surprising trends, at least surprising to me at least. So that's what we're going to talk about today. If you've been liking my weather content, please subscribe. But without further ado, guys, we have so much to talk about, so that's exactly what we're going to do. So now we have Tropical Depression 14 as of 10 a.m. Maximum sustained winds at 30 knots, 35 miles an hour. So what that equals. Central pressure about 1,007 millibars. So generally speaking, we have a tropical depression. Might become a storm at some point later on today. But regardless, this is a strengthening system. It has maintained convection since yesterday, and it only looks even better on satellite. So, guys, we're dealing with a really bad situation. Here's the latest forecast track, and I don't know if I can zoom that in for you, but you see the forecast track and how it goes over Florida. And currently, right now, it's forecast to be a Cat 2 hurricane. So, guys, it's not looking good. I got to keep saying that because this just isn't a good situation. And here's the forecast track. And remember, impacts extend well away from the cone. And when we say that, guys, I'm definitely going to break that down for you because I feel like that's very vague. I'm not just going to tell you that impacts extend well away from the center and just say that. I will talk about the severity of the impacts because I think that matters. I think we should be able to simplify the impacts instead of just saying impacts extend well away from the cone. So that's what we're going to talk about today. But you can see the cone reaches even part of South Carolina, so this storm could get pretty far north. Granted, it probably shouldn't get too far north because we have a pretty strong cold front coming in, which should keep things pretty far south. But with the way things are going this year, crazy things have happened. So for now, we're just going to say that this stays pretty far south, but anything could happen at this point in the game. Because I definitely think we'll be seeing a tropical depression in the Western Gulf this morning. And here's a look at Tropical Depression 14. Pretty nice looking storm on satellite. Has maintained convection overall pretty steadily. You can see the pretty high cloud tops. So generally speaking, it actually doesn't look bad at all this morning. Even with the little bit of a shear up to the north, it still doesn't look bad. So the fact that it's maintaining intensity this early on definitely gives bearing to the stronger model guidance. So um, this is forecasted by the National Hurricane Center to become a Cat 2. So that's what we're going to talk about here. We're going to go through hurricane models, and then we're going to go through both of the global models and another global model. And then we're going to talk about some limiting factors and then some factors that could definitely lend to stronger solutions. Starting with the fact that we have tropical depression this morning. This is the HWRF model, which the HWRF model did a really good job with Helene and just the overall structure of the storm. And it also did good with the pressure and everything. So again, HWRF, HMO models definitely did best with Helene, so we definitely should take that into consideration. So we're going in time, and HWRF is rapidly intensifying this system into Monday, going into Tuesday. I mean, it gets this thing all the way down to a 923 millibar, probably heading towards Cat 5 hurricane. So the HRF shows a strong hurricane on approach. Um, this could, I'm not gonna say it couldn't happen, but I do think though that with the shear and dry air, intensity may not get this high, but nothing's off the table, guys. This isn't off the table. We could see a major Cat 4 hurricane. We could. It's not off, nothing's off the table at this point in the game. Um, and then it moves it a little bit, maybe a little bit north of Tampa. So I don't know why that just switched there, guys. Hold on, but we could. I mean, the HRF model shows a pretty strong hurricane headed towards Florida. So that is certainly something that we should watch out for, because that could be a big deal. But that's what the HRF model shows. You go to the HMO. I don't know why the HRF model just did that. But here we go with 92L on HMO model. And hold on, guys, because things are not going as planned right now. I don't know what's happening. Alright, guys, change the plan. I think what's happening is these new models are trying to call this TD 14 with Tropical Depression 14, so they no longer have the guidance up here for Invest 92L. So change of plans. I'll actually switch just to the global models, and I'll show you guys those updated models on my next video. But I'll just show you here the global models, and then we'll go through. So, but just to give you like an update on that, most of the hurricane models got this to a hurricane strength. Both of the HAFSB and HAFSA model both had a Cat 1 hurricane on approach to Florida, and then HMO and HRF model both had Cat 3, Cat 4 hurricanes headed towards Florida. So definitely some questions on intensity, but again, we're going to look at the latest GFS model, which gets this, which is rapidly strengthening the system starting Monday morning, and it only intensifies as it gets towards Florida, and it gets it down to a 946 Cat 3 hurricane on approach to Florida, which is certainly a possibility. And look out, it can't get so far north because of that cold front, but it gets as far north as South Carolina. So again, crazier, weirder things have happened, guys, and this is one of those weirder things. I mean, the other day when we were looking at this, and you remember I was telling you that this will probably just fizzle out to be nothing because of wind shear and gyre, and now look, we could be looking at a major hurricane on approach to Florida. So Mother Nature is very, very unpredictable at times, and this is just another one of those scenarios. Now, we've been talking about this area all week, but I just didn't expect it to blow up like this. So this is certainly a surprise to me, but models are coming in very significant, so we could be looking at a dangerous time for Florida, especially after you were just hit by Helene. This could bring a significant storm surge and flooding threat for areas. But as we get closer to the storm, I'll definitely fine tune those details. But that's the GFS model, and it comes through and it pushes into Florida as a Cat 3 hurricane. So again, yeah, I'm not really liking the model solutions at all. Here's the Euro model, which was one of the first models to really jump onto this threat and jump onto the stronger solutions. And we're going through time, and it developed a Cat 1-ish hurricane, strong tropical storm into Florida, and it pushed that through Florida with a pretty strong storm surge threat, and as well as heavy rain threat for those areas. So again, not liking the model solutions, and I can go ahead and tell you right now, the Euro ensembles are absolutely scary, downright scary, with a lot of members showing major hurricanes going into Florida. So not good, not not good. Now looking at the Euro AI model, and here's another model to look at, which is only trended toward a more stronger solution, and now is like a strong Cat 1 to a strong tropical storm moving towards Florida. So again, one thing that I think we know for sure is that this system's headed towards Florida, but we just don't know the intensity. But there's a pretty good bet that this thing heads towards Florida and gives Florida a huge heavy rain threat. I also think another good bet is that we will have a pretty strong cold front moving in from our north, so it should keep things pretty far south. But again, the way things have gone, nothing is set in stone as far as an upper level pattern, because anything can happen. But generally speaking, if you're in the Carolinas, we shouldn't have to worry about the system. But again, obviously, just keep checking back for updates as things can change. But this system will certainly move through Florida. It could be anywhere from a strong tropical storm to a major Cat 4 hurricane. We're going to hope for the best and hope that this ends up being a sheer tropical storm with drier intrusions. But again, anything's possible. So looking at our trough interaction, because we know what happens when we get these storms to hit these trough interactions. The storms usually go ballistic. We kind of saw this with Helene, and we saw kind of to an extent saw with Francine, where as it was getting ready to make landfall and it had that trough interaction, the system pretty much rapidly intensified right up until landfall. Well, this may be one of those situations, but another thing that's also helping this system, which I forgot to really talk about, is that this system looks pretty small in size compared to Helene. So remember when I was talking about how Francine, where you had that smaller compact core, it's able to hold its ground a lot more. Well, this is another one of those situations. If you can get a smaller, tight, compact core to form like what the GFS is showing and many other models are showing, it'll be very hard for you to allow dry air and even wind shear to really weaken this system. So you're really going to need that wind shear to be very strong and probably push further south to allow to tear apart this system. Otherwise, with a tight compact core like this, it's going to be very hard to allow dry air intrusions to get into that because it's kind of created itself a moisture bubble, and so now you can't get any dry air in there. So again, these smaller, tight, compact cores are more likely to have less dry air intrusions compared to a larger system like Helene. So that's also something that's going for this system is the fact that it's much smaller in size, more compact, more tight, which should allow for a stronger storm if that verifies that way as far as its structure. Now, talk about that trough interaction. You can see our trough to the north. I mean, it's right here. You can see it in our streamlines as well, where it digs and then it goes back up in our streamlines. You can literally tell that our trough is somewhere up in here, probably by this point. That trough interaction is quite favorable for rapid intensification. I'm comfortable saying that because this is another one of those scenarios where we have a trough to the north of the tropical system, and now we're just waiting for the tropical system to get in the right position for rapid intensification. So it's another one of those situations where we have a trough to the north and a tropical system to the south, and those that trough digging the way it is and then coming back up, you get in that right favorable position. You're looking at rapid intensification. So it's definitely something that's very interesting to me that we're seeing this once again. Now, also because Helene was such a fast tracker and it didn't really stall out or do it, it wasn't really a slow mover. We also have very warm ocean waters, and I forgot to pull this up, so I'll pull it up now. But we also have very strong ocean waters. So we're going to drop down, look at that Western Atlantic. Click here. Ocean waters have actually warmed back up since I looked at them. So not only do you have the tight compact core that's going for this system, but you also have a favorable trough interaction, and you also have fairly warm ocean waters. So with all that being said, the only two limiting factors at this point in the game is dry air and shear, which is always a limiting factor. It's just a matter of how much of a limiting factor will it be. If it's not much, I can see a significant hurricane going towards Florida, and you have very warm ocean waters in the Gulf. So, there's not like there's been much cooling to really stop significant intensification. So, guys, compared to when I talked about you yesterday, talked to you about this storm yesterday, there's a lot more going for this system compared to what my earlier thoughts were. Now, limiting factors, as there's always limiting factors. Shear is still going to be present through this entirety of this system. Shear, it will be present because you have our trough digging in. You can see our trough with the streamlines as I showed you earlier. What that's going to do is it's going to amplify shear or cause shear to happen over the northern Gulf. So it's going to provide plentiful shear over the northern Gulf, which should keep things at a minimum. But when you have this small, tight, compact core and a further south track, you're going to have a stronger system. That's just the bottom line. Because there's not really much other stopping this system other than shear and dry air. But it looks to be you have some southwesterly shear that becomes westerly as the storm gets closer to Florida. And so you may have more of a lopsided asymmetric system, but we'll see. Again, tight, small, compact storms, they typically are very strong at holding their weight and holding their ground. So again, a lot of things can happen here, but shear will still be present this entire time. The reason why strength is so good right now is because shear is fairly weak. So I am wondering how the storm will interact once that shear really picks up from the trough that will come in, and as well as once it pushes that dryer into the storm or try to. But you can see here that small compact type core. Look how the dryer is just not able to really get into the storm. Look at that. You can kind of see it on the GFS how this storm is just protecting itself from this gyre. You can see all the gyre to the west, but it's not actually getting into the storm until it gets to landfall. Which by that point, well, it makes sense because now the storm's made landfall, so it's weakening, and now you definitely gonna gyre into it. So definitely some interesting scenarios. Definitely some higher end scenarios could certainly happen. Very interesting though. So showing you all that, we can go back to the latest updates, and that's the forecast track currently. Again, looking back at Tropical Depression 14, which was Invest 92L, which is now Tropical Depression 14. We now have Tropical Depression in the Gulf of Mexico. That is our system that we need to watch out for off the GFS model. Could certainly become a strong hurricane. Could be a strong tropical storm. It all depends on the structure of this system, which, so far this year, what has been a really big part of hurricane forecasting has been the structure. If we have this more organized structure, like the GFS is showing, I don't really see how we don't get a strong hurricane out of this with just such warm ocean waters. I really don't see how we don't, and with the strong trough interaction. But I'm telling you right now, if you see any weakening in this tropical depression, we see any little tweaks in the structure, that shear could really tear apart this system. We could be looking at a more weaker tropical storm. So lots bearing on this, but again, guys, if you're in Florida, you need to be preparing now because we're talking about Wednesday, Thursday, maybe early as Tuesday. We don't have that much time as you think you do. So if you're in Florida, on the west coast of Florida, central Florida, even down southern Florida, all of Florida, just prepare. Unless you're in the Big Bend, because I don't think you'll get that far north because of our trough. But if you're anywhere from Tampa, anywhere central Florida southward, I need you to get prepared for this system. You could be looking at a dangerous system, lots and lots of rainfall. Could be looking at some dangerous, significant flooding. So we're going to get more deeper into the shorter term impacts and all that once we get more model guidance in, because we're just now beginning this journey of this system. But guys, this isn't looking good for you guys in Florida. Unfortunately, I thought the shear and gyre was going to win out, but that didn't happen to be the case. So it still can win out, but it's becoming less and less likely that is actually going to happen, especially now that the National Hurricane Center is so... They're already forecasting a Cat 2 hurricane, guys, which is really early. Like, the fact that they're forecasting that tells me that there's not extreme, but it's pretty great confidence that we could be looking at a strong hurricane sometime next week, going right towards Florida. So, but that's all I really got, guys. Again, Tropical Depression 14, guys, and I can't stress enough, go ahead and get prepared. Do not wait. Don't do any of that. Go ahead and get prepared. Don't focus on the cone. Don't do any of that because impacts, they extend well away from the center, and looks of it, most of Florida could be looking at a pretty strong flooding threat. So, guys, just prepare. Don't be scared.